Hello everyone, welcome to another Sanako webinar. We're happy to see so many of you here, and we're always very happy to see so many familiar names popping up. So we've run these webinars for some time now, and we're always happy to have you here. The topic for today's webinar will be pronunciation and speaking lesson examples using Sanako Connect. I'm your host for today. My name is Alexis Juhakoski, and I work at the Sanako company as a product specialist. We're also joined today by my colleague and our CEO, Juho Isola, and of course, our speaker for today, Samantha Eldred.
Hi.
Samantha is an English language teacher. She's originally from the UK and has worked in Europe and Asia and is now settled in Finland. She has been teaching English for more than 20 years to a wide range of students, from young beginners through to adults with advanced skills. Now, before we begin, some practicalities. The webinar will be recorded and published on Sanako's YouTube, and it will be shared with all participants through email as well. So after the webinar, you'll receive a link and you can rewatch the webinar. Attendees will be muted by default, and you can only ask questions through the question and answer function or Zoom's chat functionality. So at the end of the webinar, we'll have a 5 to 10 minutes question and answer session, and we'll answer all of your questions then. So feel free to ask any questions. We look forward to answering them after the presentation. So use the question and answer functionality or Zoom's chat for those questions. Briefly about Sanako, our mission is to help schools and universities to provide the best quality second language education with minimal effort. We are a Finnish educational technology company, and our solutions are used in over 114 countries and over 50,000 classrooms worldwide. We have satisfied customers on 5 continents, and every week, roughly 6 million individuals are getting better education by using the Sanako language teaching solutions. Our customers include national governments, ministries of education, and many of the leading education institutions in the world, as well as smaller institutions. Okay, Samantha, you're good to go.
All right, thanks, Alexis. So as Alexis mentioned, my name's Samantha Eldred. I've been teaching English for a very, very long time. I'm currently based in Finland. And I'm also very interested in the use of technology in language teaching. So I'm involved in a European-wide project aimed at improving language teaching using digital tools, and that's the Erasmus Plus Fit for Digital Linguistic Education project. If you'd like to move slides, Alexis, thanks. So a quick word before I start, just to set context of where we're actually using Sanako Connect. I work at the Työväen Akatemia near Helsinki, and it's a folk high school, which is a post-secondary education institution. And most of our students are young adults who are on their way to university. We help them with open university courses and preparing for the entrance examinations. We also have some older students who are coming to change careers or improve their skills, and we have immigrant classes as well. So young adult learners on the most part. If we can move on. And also another bit of background, the status of English in Finland. So in Finland, students learn a foreign language already when they start school at the age of 7, and the most common language that they will learn is English. English is also the most common exam that students will take when they're finishing their school career in the matriculation exam. And English or Finglish very often is very, very common in Finland. The picture illustrates an advert for a Finnish hamburger company, and instead of talking about hampurilainen, the Finnish word, then as you can see we have bökus and vekibökus. So the English language is always with us, sometimes for better and sometimes for worse. So most of our students at the Academia are pretty high level of English. The matriculation examination is a B2 level, so upper intermediate level. But it has to be said that the emphasis in schools is, and in the matriculation exam, is very much on grammar, reading, writing, and there's not so much spoken English practiced. So we do find that our students, when they come to us, they need help with their speaking skills and their pronunciation, and that's two areas that I work on a lot with them. So this session we'll have a look at how I use Sanako Connect for teaching, both pronunciation and speaking skills. And we'll, as you can see, there's 4 different exercises. And before we start, a quick word about how we've come to end up with Sanako Connect for the lessons. So the picture shows what used to be my absolute pride and joy. I was delighted when I started working at the Academia to find that we actually had a real life language lab. It's Sanako 100, 16 places, and it was very much in use for foreign language teaching. We teach altogether 9 foreign languages at the Academia, so teachers were using it for that. And then I spent quite a few hours each week teaching English pronunciation. So I had 2 groups, general students, and then a group of actors who were interested in improving their pronunciation. And lessons are an hour and a half at a time and run right the way through the academic year. And then, of course, as I'm sure you also suffered, we had the COVID pandemic. Our teaching shifted online within 36 hours. We had Zoom for meeting students. We had Google Classroom for passing on lesson materials. And it pretty soon became apparent that we needed a tool for the pronunciation classes, because we didn't have any way of actually letting the students record themselves. And fortunately came across Sanako Connect quite early on, and it proved so useful that we also started using it in other classes apart from the pronunciation too. And now that COVID is over, we've been back in school since February this year, but I'm still finding that there's lots of use for Sanako Connect, even though we can get back into the physical language lab. So I find it's useful for hybrid classes. If we have students missing, they can still work on what we're doing in class. And for independent work, it's absolutely brilliant. So I can put students to do practice on their own and then submit work to me that I can give them feedback on. So it's still very much useful. So moving on to kind of examples of how I actually use the Sanako Connect. First of all, pronunciation. it's important to stress that we don't really expect our students to come out, I used to say sounding like the Queen, but it would now have to be sounding like the King. What we're really interested in is eliminating mispronunciations that can cause problems with communication, and also kind of trying to give a more educated impression when they're speaking English. So our pronunciation classes focus very much on sounds that can cause problems for Finnish speakers. If we can, and typically the general flow of a pronunciation class will practice together. I'll present the particular sounds for the day. There's probably 2, 3, maximum 4 sounds that we're working on. And having done that, the students are off on their individual practice. So in this case, using the advanced recorder on Sanako Connect. And the idea is that they will hear a native English speaker, sometimes me, sometimes somebody else, and they will listen and repeat, and then listen back and compare their pronunciation to the original. And then after that, using the simple recorder will give them a bit of extra practice material. So it could be tongue twisters, it could be speech therapy, it could be short passages to read. And again, they can practice that and submit it to me for feedback. And I think the example session that we have is everybody's favorite sound, which is the th and the sounds. And what we have is a short example of some of the exercises that the students can do on Sanako. And this that you're seeing now is actually the student viewpoint of the Sanako Connect system. So we have a bit of introduction, as you can see, how to make the sounds physically, and then dividing onto various pages. We have the advanced recorder there in the middle, and then the text that the students can practice.
Okay, I'm going to start the recorder, so we'll have an example of the exercise.
So our sounds for today are everybody's favourite, th and the. And when you're making these sounds, make sure that the tip of your tongue is sticking in front of your teeth, and the bit just behind the front of your tongue rests just on the top teeth. So you need to kind of really push the air out quite strongly to make this sound. All right, so let's get started with the th sound first of all, and here are some words to listen and repeat. Thick, think, thank.
Okay, that was an example.
And using the pages feature on Sanako Connect, it's really easy to split the different themes for the day up. So that was the unvoiced th, and this page is dealing with the voiced version of it. So the sound and the setup is very similar to what we've just seen. So there's the audio and the words that the students can listen and repeat as well. And then we also have here a bit more of a challenge. So we have sentences and a short passage, and to start off with that, we have the advanced recorder, so students can listen and repeat following a model. And then further down the page, you'll find the simple recorder here, and this gives the students a chance to record themselves reading aloud, and then they can, without any model to listen to. So at the end of that, they can also turn the recording in so that I can give them some feedback on it. And as you can see, so you can save the recording and turn it in. And the final page is just a quick reminder to the students about how to form the sounds and so on. So if they need to come back and revise it at some stage, then they can find information on how to pronounce the sounds. So, and then if we just have a quick look at the second exercise. So this one is a purely there is no model for this one. This is just using the simple recorder. And again, I mentioned I like to use tongue twisters to get students to practice. So using the simple recorder, they can practice themselves reading these passages aloud. And then there's the submit button in the top right side of the lesson, and they can basically turn their recording in for me to have a listen to. So can have a look at that. So that's an example of using Sanako Connect for pronunciation of particular sounds. The next thing that we practice quite a lot is intonation, and native English speakers tend to use intonation a great deal to convey extra meaning, and it can be a little bit confusing when the words and the intonation don't quite max up. So for example, I can say, that's really interesting, and be kind of enthusiastic, or I can say, that's really interesting, with a falling intonation, and it means something completely different. Finns tend to have a fairly level intonation, and if anything, it just falls towards the end of a sentence, and it can give the impression that they're not terribly engaged with the topic or not very enthusiastic. So we try to get our students to use a bit more intonation, and also to be a bit more aware of how intonation works, so that they pick up on the meanings when they're interacting with native speakers. And again, similar pattern to the pronunciation sessions. We'll generally practice together. There's a chance to practice using the advanced recorder, and then we move on with texts to read aloud, and then we also do quite a lot of pair work and dialogues and so on, practicing putting expression into words. And we have a example session here. And this is looking at the way we move the stress around within the sentence or within the word when we're wanting to correct something that somebody has just said. So this is our second session. And I'm really enjoying using the pages format of Sanako Connect, because as you can see in this exercise, this actually is a listening exercise to activate, first of all, and we're looking at how, in this case, B is using moving the stress around in his sentences to correct what A is saying. And the first assignment here for the students is actually to listen and to make note of how the stress is moved around in the sentences.
Nick's just started a new job, hasn't he?
No, he's just quit his job, actually.
Really? He's in computer software, isn't he?
No, that's Rick. Nick's in computer hardware.
So a chance to listen to the changing, and once they've listened for it, then they can move on to the next page where we've actually got the stresses actually highlighted there on the text, and a chance for the students to listen again if they want to, and just kind of really paying attention to the changes in stress. And once they've done that, then there's a bit of a spoken exercise for them. So in this exercise, there are 10 sentences, and they need to listen to the prompt which comes on the recording, and then they need to reply with the exact words that are set out there at 1 to 10, and putting the intonation, putting the stress in the correct place in the sentence. So have a look at this.
Example.
What time are you going to London today?
I went to London yesterday.
How was your trip to Paris yesterday?
I went to London yesterday. 1.
I'll see you at 2:05.
2.
Where did you put my old handbag?
It's on top of the wardrobe.
3.
How do you like your coffee?
With milk, please.
4.
What a nice coat. Blue's my favourite colour.
I thought you liked red. And so on. Sorry, I missed out on the first one. I thought Alexis was going to do it, but now the students can listen back to themselves and see how the emphasis went. And once they're happy, then they can submit the exercise, and I can have a listen to it and give them some feedback on it. So that's an example of how I use the Sanako Connect for teaching intonation. And then I also teach an Open University course which is grandly entitled Academic and Professional Communication in English, and this is basically giving students in all our academic lines, so lawyers and politics and writers, and all of our students basically take this course to get themselves ready for speaking English at university or higher education institutes. And we work on making presentations. We work on the correct language and formulations for having academic debate. So how to give your opinion, how to agree with somebody, how to disagree politely, and so on. I mentioned early on that very often the emphasis in schools in Finland is on more written grammar side of things, and therefore a lot of our students are quite lacking in confidence when it comes to speaking in English, particularly in formal situations. So we work on building their confidence. We give lots of practice at speaking in the kind of academic situations, and then at the end of the course they have a chance to participate in seminar discussions when they will deliver a presentation to the group, and then we will have a formal discussion after it. And the exercise that I'm going to show you is actually an exercise which helps them practice giving their opinions. In class, we will already have met the language that's involved in this. So first of all, filled pauses. So Finns tend to, if they don't have anything to say, then they will sit silently. And it can again give the impression that they're not particularly engaged with the topic. So we work on this business of just saying something, filling the silence while you are thinking of something smart to say. That's one of the things that's being practiced in the assignment. And then the other thing that we're practicing is the language that you can use for giving your opinion. So we practice this in class, and then as a homework assignment, I ask them to go onto Sanako Connect, and they get randomly generated prompts for discussion, which are on WordWall, and they're asked just to record themselves speaking for about a minute on this particular prompt. So they will need to use the filler language while they're thinking of what to say and then giving their opinions. So we could maybe have a quick look at that session as well. So this one is using the simple recorder again, and there is a link to the to some cards on WordWall, and the idea is that they can click to generate the random opinion. And it is best to so for example, cigarettes should be made illegal, and you can basically click on a statement and find the topic that they need to discuss, and then back in the in Sanako Connect there's the simple recorder there with the red microphone, and just a reminder further down the page of the phrases that they could use just to fill the space, and then different phrases that they can use for giving their opinion. So just a couple of reminders of the language they can use, and when they're ready they click the microphone button, and that is the school should be year-round. This is a very interesting question, and something that people have been thinking about for a while. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm afraid I have to disagree with this statement because I feel that students and teachers need to have a break. And having recorded that, they can click the microphone again and find another card to talk about, or if they are happy with what they've said, then they can again submit the work, and I can go and number one, check that they've actually been practicing, and number two, give them a bit of feedback on the way that they've done their speaking task. So homework from for the academic English, and it's something that they can use even without turning things in, to practice listening to themselves and giving opinions as well. So it's quite a useful tool for them to practice. And the final tool that I use an awful lot, not only in the academic English, but also for a lot of the other classes that I teach. So I teach a class for English in the workplace, for example, where again we're practicing using English as a more formal level and so on. I help students also who are applying for study places and may need to interview in English, and they may want to practice talking about themselves in English. So I use the standalone recorder as well with the students quite a lot. And that is that's basically a tool that you can just give a link to the students, and they can basically go and record themselves speaking and listen back to themselves as much as they like. I also have an assignment if people do want to get feedback on what they're saying, then there is an assignment where they can also submit feedback to me. Giving feedback, you can either write a few notes to the students and give some general feedback, or it's also possible if there's something that is mispronounced, for example, then it's possible to set up a recording and to actually model the correct pronunciation or a better way of saying things for them as well. So as a teacher, it's very, very easy to give feedback to the students that way. And we could so this is the assignment for the students who want to get the feedback. As I mentioned, the standalone recorder is something that they can just use completely independently. But here, if they want to get the feedback, then there's the simple recorder there, and then they can send. So they can record themselves, and then having recorded themselves, they can play back and listen to themselves. They can have another go using the microphone button again. And if they do want to have feedback, then there's that submit button there that they can use for sending the feedback.
Here's the standalone recorder.
Yeah, and this is the standalone recorder, which is great. So they can basically either choose to upload an audio to imitate or to speak inside, or they can just speak for themselves and listen back as many times as they like. So just it's a simple link that they need, and they can use it whenever, wherever they like. So it's very, very useful. Yeah, and you know, I have to say that I started with Sanako Connect, what, 2.5 years ago, and it's been very, very useful. I mean, it was absolutely essential during the pandemic when we couldn't be together, but it's still very useful today. And one thing I like about it is that it's just always developing, that there are always new features coming, and it's becoming more and more useful. You can meet your students without any need to go into Zoom, for example, these days. And there are exam features now that you can use. So it's getting, you know, even more useful every time. And one other thing I really like about it is that it's very, very easy to share with the students. As a teacher, you set up a session and then you immediately get a link. You can see the link for the seminar, for this session that we've just had a look at. And you've also got a QR code that you can use to share the session with students. So it's you know, very, very useful indeed. We still have our real life language lab, but I have to say that we're, you know, also starting to think ahead to the time when it's no longer sort of in very good condition, and thinking that maybe you know, the way to go is to shift over to Sanako Connect in the future, but let's see how long it goes. So these are a few examples of how I'm using Sanako Connect in class. I hope they've given you a few ideas of what can be done with it. There are, of course, many other features that you can use, like listening comprehension and so on. But for me, with my students, these are the kind of things that we do in our teaching, and very useful it is. So thanks for listening. I think I'll hand back over to Alexis now.
Thank you, Samantha, for the great presentation. So this is where we come to the part where we can go through the different questions that you've asked during the presentation. So
yes, this is Juho Isala from Sanako. I will be reading out some of the questions in the Q&A function out loud. So Alexis and Samantha, you can cover them as we go. So let's start with the questions that are related most to the actual topic, so pronunciation and intonation, for example. So one question from Astrid is, from what language acquisition level do you think pronunciation training is most useful? So I'm assuming it means kind of like the proficiency levels of students. Mm-hmm. So Samantha, could you say what's your opinion here? How do you usually start working with the pronunciation related exercises?
I mean, in an ideal world, I would say that pronunciation goes hand in hand with the vocabulary acquisition. So it's something that you could work on sort of right from the very, very early days of learning a language. I used to teach those first graders who were having their first experience of English in school, and practicing pronunciation with them was actually, you know, very fun. I mean, it was like a game to them, and I do feel that if you can get the pronunciation right from the very start, then it's a lot easier than particularly a lot of my older students, for example, who have been got into the habit of pronouncing English a certain way and been using that pronunciation for many, many years. They find it quite difficult to then correct it, and some of them can get quite disheartened. So I would encourage, you know, right from the start, pronunciation work if possible. Obviously not to the stage where kids get absolutely fed up of it, but I really would encourage, you know, from the very first meeting of vocabulary and so on, that it comes from the beginning.
Yes, thank you. Then we have, well, at least a few of questions that are related more to the actual product itself and different functions, features related to the pronunciation speech exercises. For example, Colin here mentions that with intonation and stress, it would help to visualize the sound wave frequency. Is there any way to integrate this? And then Astrid also mentions that, asking if a more automated way for giving feedback would be possible in the future, for example, using speech recognition technology. Alexis, you can cover these more product-related questions.
Yes, exactly. So both of these, or all of these questions, are something that we get asked fairly usually. The automation first on evaluating student pronunciation, for example. Of course, we already have a solution that does this, and we are bringing those features into Connect, hopefully very soon as well, just to assist the teachers, to give you an idea how well the students did, so you can focus on those students who actually need the help, for example. And the audiograph question is also very interesting. That's something we'd love to see in Connect as well. It does help with giving feedback to student intonation, for example, if you see an audiograph representation in the solution. So both of these are under construction, so to say.
Yes, exactly. So stay tuned for any product updates from Sanako. So Sanako Connect is in very active development mode at the moment. So developers are working, well, not day and night, but during the days at least, to fix existing things and bring up new features. So pronunciation and speech exercises are at the core of what we do here in Sanako. So those are especially the functions and features that we improve in the future. And we have been thinking a lot on different technologies, speech recognition, text-to-speech, FEC, and how to utilize those for the best use for the teachers and students. Yes, please.
Can I just comment on the business of visualizing the stress? It is something that we do work on sort of with the students as well, and very much the hand motions that will encourage them to kind of visualize the fact that the voice is dropping from higher to lower when we're putting emphasis on things. So we do a lot in class of the waving the hands around as well, so that there's the physical reinforcement of what's happening in the mouth and so on.
Exactly. One question is for Samantha. Any tips for building a pronunciation curriculum?
It's going to depend a lot on the native language, I would imagine, of your learners. So I think the thing to do is pay attention, especially to the sounds that are not so common to the sounds in English, for example. I mean, the same applies to any language you're teaching, I guess, but pay attention in particular to the sounds that are not so common in the language of your learners. For Finns, for many languages, of course, the th sound is a strange one, but also pay attention to sounds that are pronounced very differently in your learner's first language. So one of the sounds, for example, with Finns that we try to actually reduce is the R sound, because R in Finnish is a very strong sound, whereas in English we don't really bother with it most of the time. So I think it's a case of trying to analyze those sounds, the differences in sound systems that are between your learner's language and the language that you're teaching, and then building a course up around that.
Exactly. Thank you. Alexis, this question is more to your side. There's actually two different questions related to the same one. Regarding the recording functions in Sanako Connect, one of the questions is how to make students to listen and record at the same time. So this relates to the functionalities of the advanced recorder. So if you still have the demo quickly accessible there, we could quickly go through the differences between the simple recorder and the advanced recorder, and demonstrate the voice insert function especially.
Yes, let's take a quick look if we have something open here.
I think number one has both. So the first one, yeah.
Yeah, so here we have the advanced recorder. And with the advanced recorder, you can have a master track that your students listen to while they are recording themselves. So with the advanced recorder, it's basically just a 2-track recorder. You either have a file that you use, an audio file that you have available to yourself, or you can record yourself straight by using the Sanako Connect solution as a teacher. Your students listen to the track and their voice will be recorded alongside that audio file or teacher recording. Both can be played at the same time, and your students will have the option of adjusting the volume levels for the master track and their own recordings as well. So if they don't want to hear the master track and want to focus on their own recording, they can do that perfectly fine by adjusting the volume levels right here. The simple recorder, on the other hand, allows your students to, well, it's just a record button, basically. So when your students click on the record button, they can record themselves, they can listen back to their own recording and re-record themselves if needed as well. So again, this is something that can actually be set by the teacher as well. So if you don't want to offer your students the option of re-recording themselves, you're perfectly free to do so. That might be handy in some exam situations, for example. So the teacher has a lot of control over how these functions work, but in essence, the simple recorder is just a recording button that the students use to record themselves and then listen back to their own recording. And with the advanced recorder, the students listen to a file or a recording done by the teacher and record their voices alongside that one. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you. That was very, very helpful. Yeah, we can still have 1 minute or two to answer the questions, or if you have anyone has any new questions, feel free to write them on the Q&A function. I'll be here scanning your messages and reading some of them out loud. We can pick up one product Sanako related question as well. So does Sanako Connect work with all languages equally effective, or is it mainly optimized for English teaching and learning?
Well, like all language lab solutions, Sanako Connect isn't tied to any specific language. So you can teach and learn any language with Sanako Connect. That being said, the user interface is currently only available in English, but we're working on a localization option in the future as well. But there's no limit to what language you can teach within the solution. So it's not focused on English strictly, for example. You can teach and learn any language with this solution.
Yeah, my colleagues, for example, we have Spanish, German, Chinese. They're all able to use the language lab because they can input the text in whatever language they want into the assignments and upload whatever audio files they want as well. So it works for all of our teachers.
There's also a question about pre-made language learning content and courses. So Sanako Connect at the moment doesn't include ready-made exercises, so we don't have an example exercise library or anything inside of Connect yet, but it is certainly on the product development roadmap. So we are thinking and looking for different ways to integrate quality content inside of Sanako Connect and have some pre-made exercises ready. It's not there yet today, but most likely in the future it will be. And some earlier previous Sanako products have already pre-made content, but Sanako Connect doesn't have it yet today. And Samantha, you have experience on creating the content yourself, the exercises. So could you share a bit of your feedback, experiences on how to create the content? How did you find it?
I mean, it's actually very, very easy. You have to have the texts and the recordings. Obviously, you can create those yourself, or you can use material from your language teaching book, even if there are suitable audios there. And once you've got the material for your lesson there, it's very, very easy to upload what you need onto the Sanako platform, and then you can just select the files that you need for a particular exercise from that. And I've also find it's quite useful. You can actually set up templates within Sanako. So if you go and teach the same thing more than once, you don't have to set up an entirely new lesson for each class that you're teaching, for example, or for the following year. You can call up your templates and use them as they are, or make a few amendments to them as you like. So it's creating the content, finding the content is probably the tricky bit, but once you've got it, then it's very easy to manage it within Sanako.
Yes, and we've also recently created ready-made workflows for the most common language lab activities, like listening comprehension, speaking practice, image description, and these kind of things. So Alex is going to quickly show it from the teacher side of Sanako Connect, where to find the ready-made activity workflows. So you can just start teaching with a couple of clicks, and the software will create the exercises for you.
So yes, well, once you're inside the Sanako Connect solution as a teacher, you can use the ready-made workflows simply by clicking on Launch Exercise. So we've identified that these are the most commonly used activities in a language lab at the moment. So we have pre-made workflows for all of them. For example, if you want to play back an audio file to all the students that are currently in the classroom, you would choose the listening activity right here. Or if you want to record students while they speak after your voice or an audio file, you'd simply click on Speaking Practice, And all you have to do is choose whether the students listen to your voice or if you're using a pre-existing file with the system. We are always looking forward to hearing from you if you're using the solution and there's a workflow that you would love to see here. So please get in touch and we'll take a look at what we could do.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Alexis. We are quite ready to end the webinar here. So Alexis, you most likely have one last slide, and you can explain what's next, and then we can conclude and summarize the event and end it for today.
Yes. So on to the final slide. So what's next? You should check your email inbox for communication from Sanako regarding the recording of the webinar. Like we mentioned early on, the webinar was recorded completely, so you will receive the link to the recording to your email as well. You will also receive information on upcoming webinars organized by Sanako. And you can also check our website for a local Sanako reseller if you want to contact them directly about more information on Sanako's products and register for a product trial, for example. We will be sending out a link for a free product trial as well. The end. Thank you everyone for joining in today, and especially thank you, Samantha, for the great presentation that we had today.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. Thanks everyone, and have a great day. Bye.
Bye-bye.